Welcome. I'm here with Brett Solomon, which is the Director of Access and the leading digital human rights activist. And you've just been speaking at our seminar, Digital Human Rights and the Death of Privacy. And you are invited to Sweden, that's why you're here, by Global Utmaning and the Foresight. So could you please tell us what is your main takeaways from your today's seminar?
Of course. Firstly, thanks a lot for having me. Very awesome to be here with such a great crew of people, and congratulations on all the work you've been doing. So today we had a very interesting discussion about really the future of the internet and the digital rights of its users. There's about 3 billion people online now, and we're trying to get a better sense of what some of the trends are as we look forward. So a couple of things that I talked about 5 things which I can refer to now. The first one is really about whoever controls the future of the internet controls the future of the world. I.e. there's a massive battle that's taking place in countries, in international bodies, in the boardrooms and in courtrooms for trying to kind of get control over the internet from a financial, from a political, from a policy perspective. That battle is fierce. It's between governments, so we're seeing the Russians and the Chinese, for instance, and many other Western countries basically deciding whether governance of the internet should be a state-to-state thing or whether it should be a distributed, multi-stakeholder thing between governments, civil society, the technical community and the corporate sector. That battle is fierce and unfolding. The second one is talking about the issue of really every company will become a technology company. Many of us don't know about the Internet of Things, but it's essentially saying that everything will become a node on the network. It doesn't matter whether it's the mobile phone, the table, the chair, the camera, or whether it's even immersive technologies which become part of the body. All of those IP addresses will communicate with each other, not necessarily with our authority, and those IP addresses will be connected to a company. So Burberry, for instance, which is a clothes company, sees itself now as a technology company that sells clothes, in the same way as all companies will become technology companies that sell their product. That has massive implications for data collection and what it means for our privacy. The third issue is around the pervasive surveillance state. Third trend that we're seeing is the role of the state in collecting all of that information and having information into the private lives of all of the citizens of the world. This is a nightmare scenario. We've seen with the revelations from Snowden that the capacity of the NSA in the US, but there are security agencies all over the world that are sharing information about us as citizens. What does that mean for our right to privacy? What does that mean for the future of our democracies? And so the question that we discussed was, is there a death of privacy? I think we're also seeing some positive elements as well. Citizens are starting to stand up and say, actually, I'm not installing that app because it negatively impacts upon my right, and we've seen at least 50% of US citizens who have uninstalled an app as a result of that. The fourth trend that we've talked about is transparency, is the new normal. With all of this information, it also means the relationship between the state and the citizen has changed somewhat, and we can make our governments and our companies more accountable with the data that they collect, so that we're able to actually reduce corruption, potentially reduce fraud, and make the state policies and practices more compliant with what we want. It's kind of the positive side. But the fifth theme is around the criminalization of freedom of speech. It's something that we're seeing all over the world, from Saudi Arabia to Vietnam, even to here in Sweden. And we need to make sure that in the digital environment, the right to freedom of speech remains. And in doing so, when we have the right to freedom of speech, again, it's another plank of the democratic state. People are nervous as well, because the right to freedom of expression means that people can say what they want and also others can listen to that. We think that the answer to that is not the silencing of speech, but more speech which is able to temper confidence in the community to be able to do so. When you add all of those 5 themes together, I think it raises a question about which direction is the world, the digital world, heading. As I said, whoever controls the future of the internet controls the future of the world. And for us as think tanks and as citizens and as companies and as governments, we need to make sure that the path that we head down is one which does not entail mass surveillance, censorship, monitoring and militarization of the internet, but the one that promotes and anticipates and encourages the enjoyment of our basic human rights.
Thank you very much. You talked about how you as a consumer actually could choose not to download some apps and so on. As a global citizen, what do I do in order to preserve my rights and to say stopping this and keeping up the freedom of speech? What is it that I can do?
You should definitely join accessnow.org, which is my organisation, or any of the other digital rights groups that are around the world, because we need to make sure that the civil society voice is in those boardrooms and courtrooms and congresses and so on. Those decisions are being made. We need to keep our governments accountable as well. We need to choose which products that we use. I think that companies are looking right at this point as to whether privacy is a characteristic of a product, and if it is, does it bring more customers? And we're hoping, and I think we're seeing, that the companies that produce privacy-enhancing platforms will be more popular than those that don't. So I think that citizens have a really important role to play in the same way that they do in the offline world, they do in the online world. Sweden in particular is pivotal because Sweden has been such a great advocate for digital rights globally, and we want that to happen whichever government is in place.
Thank you very much. Thank you for listening. And the takeaway from here is that keep your rights, keep your digital human rights, join Access, join Global Utmaning, and see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.